My name is Gray Jones, host of the TV Writer Podcast, partner of Script Magazine, found at tvwriterpodcast.com, and also these video tips. Well, today we're going to talk about Magma PCI expansion enclosures. And this is a revolutionary technology that I'm going to talk about today, and I'll explain why. Well, most cameras and camcorders and other types of technology are evolutionary. They bring slightly better features than the previous models. For instance, the first Canon DSLR camera, the Canon 5D Mark II, that could shoot video, brought about a revolution because you could shoot cinema-style video with an inexpensive camera. Well, today, you're about to see a revolution that might enable you to create a powerhouse editing workstation out of a very inexpensive computer. And the reason is because Magma, who have been longtime makers of PCI expansion products and then PCI Express expansion products, now have a new Thunderbolt model. And I'm going to talk about this Thunderbolt model and also all of their other offerings for PCI Express, including other ways that you can expand your desktop or laptop computer. I'll explain why we might need this. Current Macs and PCs, both of them, are very limited in the number of PCI Express slots they have. Most Macs and all laptops have none. No PCI Express. Mac Pros have 4 slots. 2 of them are limited to 4x speed. On older models, might be even less. With PCs, you might have 5 to 7 PCI Express slots, but often only 2 or 3 of them are high-speed slots. And depending on your motherboard, some of them may not support large cards, or they might be blocked. Say, for instance, the way your motherboard is configured, whether you've got big cards in there, or there's lots of other reasons they might be blocked. And what are some of the things that you might put in these card slots? Well, a RAID card. These days, we have huge media needs, and we need more and more and more and more space. And it's very, very important that this space be protected. With RAID technology, you have the ability to set up a large storage enclosure where if one of the drives fails, you don't lose your data. Very, very exciting stuff. Beyond the scope of this particular episode, but suffice it to say, you might need a RAID card. Often that RAID card might need a slot for a battery backup. You might need more than one RAID card for different types of RAIDs. For instance, an SAS RAID or a port multiplier eSATA RAID. While for editing, you're going to need a video capture card, like one from Blackmagic or Matrox. A lot of those take up 2 slots. For instance, one slot might be for the HDMI ports. If you use Adobe's products like Adobe Premiere or After Effects, they use CUDA GPU acceleration to accelerate rendering and other functions. Also, Blackmagic DaVinci uses this technology to accelerate the program. Well, graphics cards are big. They usually take up 2 slots, and they need fast slots as well. There's a whole pile of other reasons you might need PCI cards, like an H.264 accelerator. Matrox makes some great ones. They're called RT Max. I highly recommend them. That's how I get these podcast and video tips out. There's serial ATA cards because Macs just, for some reason, don't come with serial ATA. There's fiber channel cards to connect to a faster fiber channel network, PCI sound cards, USB 3 cards, more channels of FireWire 800 or USB 2. If it's a server, you might need more Ethernet ports. Tons and tons of reasons that you might want extra PCI slots, or if you have a laptop computer or a Mac Mini or something like that, an iMac, you just don't have any slots. Well, there are ways. As a matter of fact, you could have a Mac Mini or a MacBook Air. And now what Magma allows you to do, if you have a Thunderbolt port on that Mac or PC, you can actually add up to 18 PCI slots. They make the new ExpressBox 3T. And what each one of those does is give you 3 new PCI slots. 2 8X PCIe, second generation slots, and 1 4X PCIe. And so you can put 3 cards into that, but it also has a daisy chain port, so you can actually daisy chain up to 6 of these together. Literally, can you imagine 18 PCI slots on a $500 Mac Mini? Awesome stuff. And You can even put graphics cards and other really fast cards into these slots and get performance out of something like a MacBook Air. Imagine being able to go on the road with a MacBook Air and be able to have actual PCI Express fast slots on them. Amazing stuff. The great thing about Magma, unlike other providers, they make a very wide range of options. Say, for instance, with other providers, they might give you sort of 3 or 4 to choose from, and if your needs don't fit, you're stuck. Well, with Magma, they make options that range from 1 slot all the way up to 16 slots with varying speeds for varying needs. Some, like their new Thunderbolt options, are scalable. In other words, you can just add more enclosures as you need them. And others are able to connect without Thunderbolt. Say, for instance, if you have a laptop like a 17-inch MacBook Pro, one of the older ones that doesn't have Thunderbolt, you're not stuck because they also make Express card versions. So you can add PCI slots to an Express card laptop. I should mention as well, Magma has been doing this for a long time. How long? Well, when Apple Computer themselves needed PCI expansion for their own servers, who did they call? Magma. Enough said. So to understand how to set one of these things up and what you're going to need to do, let's start with a sample unit. Here I've got the ExpressBox 7 in the studio. There's a number of different versions of the ExpressBox 7 that all look like this. And so first what you're going to need to do is you're going to install a host adapter card into your computer. You're going to want to install it in one of the faster slots in the computer. Depending on the speed of the Magma case that you get, it'll dictate which slot you need to install it in. Say, for instance, it might need to be in a 8X, or it might need to even be in a 16X, depending on which one it is. And then that connects via a cable to the back of the Magma. And then the Magma enclosure has, well, let's look inside the unit, a whole pile of slots. So say, for instance, you might have a Mac Pro with only 4 slots in the computer. One of them is taken up with a host adapter card, and all of a sudden you have 7 new slots. Depending on which model, as I said, some of them, the ExpressBox 7, like this one here, each slot gives you 4x speed, so that might be suitable for a storage enclosure or adding USB 3 cards, serial ATA, etc. Many capture cards, like the Blackmagic DeckLink Studio card, would be compatible with this. The Matrox H264 accelerators would be compatible with this. As well, you can get a model Generation 2, which gives you 8x slots, which are massively, massively powerful. As a matter of fact, they can handle up to 8 gigabytes per second. So that is definitely all the bandwidth you might need. I would recommend something like that for Blackmagic DaVinci, for GPU acceleration, and other high performance needs. Lots of graphics cards, things like that. They make many different sizes of cases, but all of them are going to look somewhat like this, where you're going to have a bunch of PCI slots inside. And how complicated is it? It's literally just as if those slots were in your computer. You just insert the card, you screw it in, and make sure you power on the Magma enclosure first, and then power on your computer, and then that's it. There's no drivers. There's no nothing. According to your computer, it just all of a sudden thinks that it's got a pile of extra slots. Very, very cool. Very, very easy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the options that are available. As I mentioned before, they can go from 1 slot all the way up to 16. The 1 slot cards are available for Express card or for PCI Express. So if you have a laptop with Express card, you can just use one of these. If all you need is just 1 card, this gives you 1 PCI Express slot. As well, there's an ExpressBox 2, which gives you 2 8X slots. This is a more of a rack style unit, and it also connects by Express card or an 8X low profile card in your desktop computer. One that I'm very, very excited about, as I mentioned before, the ExpressBox 3T, which is for Thunderbolt equipped computers, which is not just Mac, but also PCs are now coming out with Thunderbolt. If you have a Mac Mini, if you have a MacBook Air, if you have any current generation MacBook, if you have an iMac, and I'm hoping sometime soon Mac Pro is going to have Thunderbolt, This lets you, each one that you install, and they're under $1,000, lets you install up to 3 cards, 2 Generation 2 8X slots and 1 Generation 2 4X slot. So again, a Mac Mini, if you had 2 of these, would have 6 slots, including 4 8X Generation 2 slots. And we're talking about something that costs less than a Mac Pro. Killer stuff. Awesome stuff. Now, do go to the website because there are some limitations at the moment. A lot of the makers of PCI cards have to come out with Thunderbolt aware drivers, but Magma is working. If you look on their site, they have, actually, I'm going to look right now. They have a pile of partners that they're working with very aggressively. Just a few of them: Apple, Avid, Red, Intel, Universal Audio, Aja, Atto, Apogee, Promise. They're working with CalDigit and lots more to make sure that as soon as possible, these drivers are going to be Thunderbolt aware. So coming very, very soon, but make sure you contact them to find out when this support is coming. As well, there's an ExpressBox 4 that gives you 4 slots. And as well, very, very exciting, is an ExpressBox 4 1U, it's called. It's a 1-unit rack-mountable unit. And this one is really cool. It gives you 4 Generation 1 or Generation 2 8X PCIe slots, but this one is scalable. And so if you have a PCI Express PC or Mac computer, you can literally add tons of these. You can go up to, boy, I forget, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 slots. It's something crazy. But it just suffice it to say that you can just keep on adding more and more slots and go as high as you want. You can have a massively powerful server or workstation with something like that. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of ExpressBox 7 models with 7 slots. And if you want to go all the way to the top, ExpressBox 16 gives you 16 slots at either 8X or 16X PCI Express speeds. I urge you, if you're at all interested in these things, especially, man, I mean, if you have a Mac or PC that has a Thunderbolt port, why wouldn't you want to add these PCI Express slots? Go to magma.com and go to their products page, and you can see a list of all of these options. And make sure to do contact their salespeople if you have any questions about the configuration that you need for your particular cards. Wow! As a video editor, as a colorist, and as somebody who is always, I'm always limited by my computers. I find they never have quite enough power. Well, this is a revolution that gives your existing computer lots more power. Wow, killer stuff. I urge you to go to magma.com to find out about these great solutions. Thanks so much for joining me. This has been Gray Jones from TVWriterPodcast.com and Video Tips. And do check out my YouTube channel. Search for Graham A. Jones on YouTube for more video tips. You can also follow me on Twitter @GrayJones is my handle, or search IMDb for Gray Jones, and you want the one with 2 next to it. But anyway, thanks for joining me. It's been great. Bye-bye.